So today we are going to speak on the best practices, tools, and techniques for improving operational excellence. What a wonderful topic we have, as this is the third podcast with Goldratt Consulting. And today we have Vijay Selvarajan, Principal Consultant, Head of GCC Region for Goldratt Consulting, with us today in order to uh, speak on this subject, operational excellence, the best practices, tools, and techniques. Now, achieving operational excellence means skillfully managing all those operational processes and resources to deliver top-notch results. It's not about cutting the cost. It's not about letting your employees go off. It is all about refining your internal operations to elevate the maximum customer satisfaction. Now, there was an interesting statement from McKinsey and Company. Next generation operational excellence is more than doing things well. It is about uniting an organization around a common purpose, process, and systems, which means never work in silos, and silos won't give you results. So, today we are going to speak on how we are eradicating waste. At the same time, how we are looking at lean our processes. Also, we are touch basing on some elements of operational excellence in terms of the processes and the tools and techniques used in achieving a better result. So let me start with giving an opportunity for Vijay to introduce himself to our audience today. Vijay, over to you.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for inviting me for this podcast. Before this podcast, while speaking to you, I'm really happy that you are taking this initiative to kind of spread the knowledge of improvement techniques for organizations across the globe, right? Very, very interesting to see what you're doing, and very happy to be a part of this podcast. I started my career as a lean expert, implementing lean processes for manufacturing across manufacturing facilities in US, Europe, and Asia. Then I came across theory of constraints, about 2009, 2010, around that time, I came across this concept called theory of constraints. The concept sounded very commonsensical and practical, So I said, okay, let me see what TOC can really do to organizations, since it sounds so simple. And I've always believed that simplicity in a solution means that there's been a lot of thought put behind it.
Yeah.
If the solution is simple, then it's easy to implement and the results will be an easy byproduct. So I joined the, theory of constraints world in 2010, and I have been helping many companies achieve breakthrough performance ever since. Imagine helping an organization grow from $600 million to $2.5 billion in less than 5 years, or, quadrupling the share value of a company within a year, or creating benchmarks. We've created benchmarks in retail where we made the most profitable retail organization in India. The satisfaction of being able to bring in such an impact keeps me motivated. And now, like you said, I head the GCC region for Goldratt Consulting. Goldratt Consulting is the founders of this knowledge. And I really look forward to helping organizations in GCC achieve breakthrough results also.
Wonderful. So it's good to see your vast experience with Goldratt Consulting. And I think today's subject resonates with what you actually do in the organization and what actually you do to deliver results. So now so now let's come back to the basics of today's topic. What is operational excellence, and at what point of business and a CEO or maybe a business owner feel that he's nearing that operational excellence in his business? Now, operational excellence is a strategic approach. We all know that. It's about reducing the waste and delivering greater value to the customers. So when you see not only profits coming in, but also waste is minimized, circularity is achieved, and there is a lean approach. At that point, I think the business owners can think of that we are going to achieve an excellence in operation, or maybe an operational excellence. So the first question in relation to this to Vijay would be, what are the key principles of operational excellence and how do they contribute to improving operational efficiency within an organization?
Any improvement should yield better results than before. right? Now, I don't know any company that is not looking to improve its operations. Anytime I speak to a CEO of the number of improvement projects he's doing in operations, I hear, tens, sometimes even the CEO is not aware of the number of initiatives that are running in his organization. That's the number of, initiatives that run. But often these initiatives do not really see an impact in the P&L. Now, every time an improvement project is taken in an organization, it is taken with the thought process that it will take the organization to some form of improvement in the P&L, right? So and because of so many initiatives running, the track of those initiatives, because of the limited management attention that is put into it, the results are seldom seen, right? So the way we approach it, at least, I'll tell you how we approach it. And then I can kind of give you some examples why this approach has been working for us. So the first stage for any improvement is to have the right measures at a business performance level, right? And in theory of constraints, we use very simple measures. We use three measures, only three. Okay. And the first measure, we call it throughput. Throughput is nothing but sales minus truly variable cost. Then the second measure is investment. And the third measure is operating expense. That is the fixed cost, right? So with these three measures, the throughput should go up, the investment should come down, and the operating expenses should come down. Now, if we are taking on any operational improvement initiative, it should deliver these results. The T should go up, the investment should come down, and the operating expense should come down. Now, while this is the fundamental measure, now we kind of put some ratios in these measures to kind of track the progress of the initiative or the improvement project. So when we look at an organization, we should see that the effectiveness in the way they're doing business should continuously improve. And so we kind of, before starting any project for operational improvement, we first see the trend of the throughput by investment. Now, this trend should continuously improve. If it doesn't improve, we know where to focus for this improvement, right? We focus on how we are managing the investments, that is the inventory in the organization. Then we also look at how the productivity of the organization is, and the productivity is measured by throughput by operating expense. Now, if the throughput by operating expense is flat, it means that the company is not growing in its bottom line, right?
Yes.
So then we see that the trend of the productivity is flat or it is declining, then we know where to focus for our operational improvement, right? We've got to bring in the elements of removing waste so that we make the organization more profitable. So once we've got the measure in place of where we need to focus, then we focus on introducing improvements only on the constraint, right? So now imagine, let me try to give you an example of what I'm talking about when I say focus on the constraint. Now, imagine a factory that has 4 different machines, okay? The first machine is producing at 5 pieces an hour. The second machine is producing at 3 pieces an hour. The third machine is producing at 2 pieces an hour. And the fourth machine is producing at 6 pieces an hour, okay? And just to make it a little interesting, I'll add in a complication that the organization is just invested in robotics to make one of the machines, that is the last machine, produce at a rate of 6 pieces an hour. Okay, and imagine that for the final product to come, the raw material goes into the first machine, it comes out, is fed into the second, third, and then fourth, and the final product comes out. Now, I've also given you one more added challenge or activity that the organization has done. They've invested a lot of money using robotics for the 6th machine to improve the efficiency of the 6th machine. Okay. Now, how much do you think would come out of this factory every hour, right? I said the first machine is at 5, second machine produces at 3, third machine at 2, and the fourth machine at 6. the number of pieces that would come out every hour is only 2 pieces, because that is the
Yeah.
slowest machine, right? And it's a flow process. But since an organization has invested a lot of money in the machine that produces 6 pieces, they would probably invest more of their capacity in focusing on improving the efficiency of the machine that produces 6 pieces, right?
Because of the
But that's not going
Yeah.
to give any value to the organization, right?
True.
End of the day, it's only going to give an output of 2. So where should the organization focus its operational excellence in? It should focus on the machine that was only producing 2 pieces per hour as an output. And if they do, and let's say they increase that 2 pieces output to 3 pieces, they've they've improved the output by 50%,
Correct.
right? And this is how we operate, right? So first we have the measure. What measure should we focus on improving? Then we identify which is the constraint in the organization, and then we focus our efforts on elevating that constraint or exploiting that constraint first, then elevating that constraint, so that we see this measure of business performance improve, and that will have a positive impact on the P&L. Like to add one more point. When you started, you said that you quoted the article from McKinsey, and I'd
Right.
like to also kind of bring that in with this example that I gave.
Yeah.
There are 4 machines. These 4 machines operate at different output levels. So
Yeah.
what McKinsey is actually trying to say is exactly this, right? They're basically trying to say that the sum of local improvements do not lead to the total improvement expected of the organization. Improving all the machines is what most organizations would tend to, because there would be a head of department for each department or each machine that is
Yeah.
operating, and each head of department would have improvement initiatives for themselves, right? For their department. Now, imagine if the machine that is producing 5 pieces per hour has an improvement mechanism put in to increase its output from 5 to 6, right? You'd only be creating waste in the organization, because nothing more than 2 is going to come out. So what would happen is you would have work in progress inventory kind of lying behind machines, which would mean that you're
Yeah.
blocking working capital, you're wasting space, you're wasting expensive resources, right? So
Right.
first mindset change that needs to come to an organization is that local improvements do not lead to the total improvement for the organization. You have to focus on only the constraint for getting improvements in an organization.
Yeah. So you mentioned 3 important rules. One is throughput should go up, investment should come down, operating expense should come down. So I think these are the mantra, or maybe kind of a 3 rules, a guidebook, which can lead to achieving the key principles of operational excellence and also improve the operational efficiency in any organization. So keeping that in reference, would you like to also share in some best practices where improvement or continuous improvement is in picture, and operational processes, the continuous improvement in operational processes, and what specific tools have you also implemented in different organizations in this regard?
Jason, continuous improvement is very important, right? As
Right.
you rightly pointed out. The times are changing rapidly, and uncertainty is becoming more and more as we start venturing into the future, right? And if an organization is believing that they have solved the puzzle of how an organization should operate now, and they believe that this excellence that they've achieved today can continue as excellence tomorrow, I think COVID was a very good example, right? So it is very important that the organization has a feedback system within themselves to quickly adapt or change, so that they can be relevant. And this quickly adapting or changing is continuous improvement, right? So in TOC, when we start any implementation, we decide what the value helix for the organization is. Let me give you an example of what I mean by value helix. So if we are
Yeah.
looking at an organization, we first decide that, boss, the organization needs to improve its operational efficiency in the internal systems. We first solve that problem. Okay. Then, with a good operational efficient system internal, how can we use this for creating value to the customers to capture more sales? That's the second step that we would go to. Okay, and we'd have the plan for that before we start the implementation.
Right.
Then let's say that we've also been able to capitalize in the market with the efficiency we built within our the organization. Then we have an engine running, which is a fast feedback loop to understand the behavior of customers with this new efficiency we brought in. Because if you have something that is working very well, it is not soon before somebody else also tries to learn what you're doing and copies you. So you have to be ahead of the
Correct.
game, right? So you need to have a fast feedback loop to understand how the customers are behaving so that you can come up with your next unrefusable offer to the customers to in which you're removing a significant limitation for them. And this is how you continuously improve your excellence in operations, right? And keep yourself
Yeah.
relevant to capturing majority of the market share. If I have to give this sequence, this example sequence in one of my implementations, I'll pick up an example of one of my customers who is distributing spare parts, auto spare parts. They are
Okay.
distributing auto spare parts across the Asia region. And when we went into their organization, we found that they were having a lot of challenges with their operations, predominantly because of the way they were managing their investment or inventory. Okay. So when we went in, we found that they had a lost sales of about 50%. 50% of the customers, what they asked for, they were not able to get. They also had surplus inventory. They were holding about a year's worth of inventory when they only needed to hold a maximum of about three months worth of inventory, right? So approximately 200% extra inventory. The first we said, boss, with this kind of efficiency within the organization, there is nothing we can really offer to a customer that is going to be different from what somebody else is offering, or kind of excite a customer to be more loyal towards buying your products. So we said, first, let's work on improving the internal efficiency. And we put a measure saying that the way we are going to measure internal efficiency improvement is by making sure that we have a fill rate about 97.5% to the customers from the current 50%. And we reduce the inventory significantly, okay, so that we have released working capital to fuel for a larger range of products. So we did this implementation. We were able to achieve this 97.5. We actually achieved 98% fill rate. And we reduced the inventory by about 60% in the first year, right? Then once we achieved this, we said, boss, now that we have an efficient supply chain, why not we extend the supply chain to our channel partners, right? And what this would bring to the channel partners is a high ROI for their business. If they invest in my products, they would have to invest a lot less to make a higher turnover, higher gross margin compared to investing in anybody else's product, right? So
Right.
we did not sell spares to customers. We sold them ROI because that was the capability we built within the organization. So when we did this in the next 2 years, the company sale doubled. Okay, because it was so easy for us to go to a counter and say, boss, let's reduce your inventory, overall inventory that you have with us. With the reduced inventory that we are able to do at your counter, let's increase the range so that we have better conversion at your counter. So we were able to increase the number of SKUs we held at each counter for our channel partners. And because our products were giving an ROI of, we were providing an ROI of 60%, whereas the industry norm was 20%. It was very easy for us to activate more new counters, right? So we had our point of sales increasing, and we had a higher range of products being displayed at each of the counters. So this double the sales in 2 years. Then once we achieved this, we understood that, boss, now I'm available in more than 100,000 point of sales. When we started, we were available only at around 30,000 point of sales. In 2 years, we had increased from 30,000 to 100,000 point of sales. So then what we did
Yeah.
was, now that we are available in so many places, let's go and
Yeah.
give a loyalty program to the mechanics so that they come and buy more products, more of our products, and increase the pull of our products, right? And this increased the sale by another 30% that year, right? So you see how just by improving operational efficiency, we've kind of fueled it to the next level, of growth, right? So, to answer the question of fostering this culture, in Goldratt Consulting, we've created several frameworks. We've done over 2,000 transformational implementations worldwide. And what we've seen important is first laying out this clear vision of how the organization is expected to grow. And this creates an excitement within the organization and all the people involved. And then how do we get buy-ins at all levels? No change is sustainable if we're trying to force people to follow a certain path that the company thinks is right. It is so important that we get buy-ins at all levels before we embark on this change initiative, right? So this is what Goldratt's good at. We have a lot of frameworks built in how we get buy-ins at different levels through the organization, right? So this is how we build a sustainable change process throughout the organization.
Yeah. So I think some of the snapshots which I noted down for in regards to this point was having a fast feedback loop, as you mentioned. That is one thing which is very important. Keeping yourself relevant is very important. Working on the working capital, which is very, very important. Working on the ROI, which is very scalable also, having a scalable option in place, and taking the buy-ins from all stakeholders. I think these are some of the key areas where best practices can be implemented, and keep your best practices revolving around these areas to achieve operational excellence. How do we measure these efficiency or tools? How do we measure? How can organizations really measure to have effective results and track the improvements over time?
Another great question, Jason. So, when you talk about measurements, I remember what Ellie said. Ellie's quote is, tell me how you will measure me, and I'll tell you how I behave. Right? You measure
Oh,
somebody in a particular way, and that's how you can expect them to behave. Right? So the first part of measuring, when you're wanting your organization to be under this continuous improvement of excellence, is to stop measuring targets and measure enablers. Okay, it's easy to measure targets, but does not allow the system to operate with higher certainty. Let me give you an example. If you walk into any organization and ask how the sales team is measured, they will be very quick to answer, saying that we have monthly targets, quarterly targets, yearly targets, and the sales teams are measured on achieving these numbers, right? And the end result is natural. If you see in an organization where the measurements are of this form, you will see a spike in sales towards the time where the targets are to be reported. Targeted numbers are to be reported. And when these spike sales happen, you can imagine the kind of stress it puts in the supply chain, right? Month-end syndrome, logistics suddenly has to kind of get all the transport out in the last couple of days of the month or the quarter. Now it's so hard for them to mobilize so many vehicles at the last minute. If you see production has a certain capacity that they operate in. Now, if you have this month-end syndrome or the target syndrome, then they will have to immediately ramp up their capacity to service that demand. So if you see, the whole supply chain will be put under stress when you are having a measure on these targets, right? So in this scenario, how we measure to have better operational efficiency or better implementation of these improvement projects is through enablers. So in this
Right.
example, if I have to measure a sales team, I would measure them on, each salesperson has a visit plan, right? How effective is his visit plan? How is he adhering to the visit plan? So if he's supposed to visit, let's say, 10 counters a day, has he visited all the 10 counters? In the 10 counters that he's visited, how many counters have given an order for that day? Is it five? If it's five, can we make it six tomorrow? Right? And in each of the counters that he's getting an order from, is he able to increase the range? And the target will be for him to increase the range in each of the counters. And how many new counters is he adding? Right? Now, if we just have these enablers as the measurement, this will ensure that the sales team is working with its maximum potential, right? And if they're working
Right.
with the maximum potential, then it is possible to achieve the highest possible sale. And if they're working in a uniform way, then the supply chain will also be uniform, not putting stress to the uniform. So our deliverables or our efficiency in servicing the market will also be much better, right? So the way to measure is not by targets, but by enablers. And if an organization is able to imbibe this, then they will be able to have effective implementation of operational excellence in their organization.
Yeah. So that's the catch of the day. Stop measuring targets, but work around enablers. That's how you can actually get effective results rather than focusing on just targets. One another question which comes to my mind when we speak on these recent developments, AI, generative AI, all those things which is revolving around artificial intelligence. Technology plays a very important part in achieving these results. At least it can give you faster results and more efficient results as well. Uh, do you see that technology and automation can support operational excellence? And also, do you see any kind of challenges which can also be addressed due to adoption of technology?
Yeah, for sure. Technology does help in operational excellence to a large extent. And but technology alone is not sufficient for operational excellence. And it's a very funny example that comes to my mind. We all know ERP systems. They're very powerful, right? SAP, Oracle, all these ERP systems are very powerful. They've really made life easy for people, giving visibility across the value chain, and the speed at which they can process data makes it very easy for people, right? So, earlier in the day when there were no ERP systems, people used to take a month to plan for the next month. You know, the planning will have to include how they purchase based on expected sales, budget, lead times. They also have to plan how to schedule the production to ensure timely availability of all the products with the available
Right.
capacity that's the production. They also have to plan dispatches across various warehouses to their customers so that the right product is available at the right place at the right time. And this was a very
Right.
cumbersome task. It used to take them a month to do this planning
Mm.
with spreadsheets and all that. And now with this ERP system coming in place, all this planning can be done with a touch of a button. In minutes, this whole plan is made, right?
Right.
But I want to ask you a question, Jason. How many companies do you know are doing daily planning? ERP enables this, right? Nobody is. Everybody is still doing monthly planning, right? Everything is happening monthly, right?
Yeah.
So technology is only useful in improving operational efficiency when we first change our approach to solving a problem, and then use
Right.
technology to ease or improve the efficiency. So,
Right.
in other words, technology is great as long as it is used as an enabler for the strategy that the organization wants to implement, rather than using it just because it is the trend. Other companies are implementing, next generation technology. So we should also, or if the thought process that technology is going to make my life easier, these are not the reasons for which we should use technology. So first, let's improve our processes. see that our processes are delivering results. And with the improved processes, let's try to see how technology can enable this to be simpler to use, right? Without errors and more accurate.
No, as you said, technology is always an enabler and should stay that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, human intervention is very much critical, and it leads to actually decision making uh, strategies as well. Because human is required to make decisions at the right time and feed the algorithms, feed the data into the particular machine so that it can give you better results. Uh, apart from all the things which you discussed before, like the constraints in terms of the operating expense should come down, the investment should come down, throughput should go up. Some challenges you mentioned as well, working on the ROI and stuff like that. Do you want to focus any specific challenge in terms of pursuit of organizational operational excellence, or some common challenges which you want to also discuss before winding up the show?
So I'd like to summarize it with 3 points, and I will kind of give an example of each point also. I'll try to make it more easy to understand for the listeners. The first,
Yeah.
uh, the first point is that we should always look at the system holistically and not at a localized level. Okay, local improvements can have a negative impact somewhere in the value chain, which many of us will not realize if we are looking at initiatives at a localized level.
Right.
Many companies try to follow best practices of other organizations. They try to do a lot of benchmarking. It doesn't work. Okay. You have
Mm.
to look at your system holistically and arrive at what works in your organization. I came across a video where, one guy actually gave a really good example for this. He said, imagine a car manufacturing company wanting to make the best car in the world. Okay. And he said,
Yeah.
uh, let's take the best parts of the best cars and then let's assemble it together to have the best car in the world. Okay. So he said, let's take the engine from Rolls-Royce. Let's take the transmission from Mercedes. Let's take the brakes from the Ferrari, and etc., to get all the best parts together. And then let's put it together and then we should have the best car, right? Because these are all the best parts of these cars, of the best cars. But what would you get if you try to put them together? You will not get anything, but you'll only have amazing parts, simply because none of these parts would even fit together, right?
Correct.
So it is important to look at the system as a whole and have improvement projects that supplement your business, right? Don't try to follow what somebody else is doing. It will not work in your organization. The second point is change management, right? Once you've got where to focus for the improvement, you have to know how to cause that change. So every improvement is a change, but not every change is an improvement, right?
Mm.
So it is important to identify the constraint and focus on having initiatives to improve the performance of the constraint, because it's a no-brainer. You work on the constraint, you will have a change that will create an improvement for the organization. And the whole organization should be aligned to the change. It is important to get a buy-in at all levels. And like I said earlier, there are many frameworks that are available to achieve this. So it is not difficult, but it is very, very important. The third is
Right.
sustainability, right? Once the system has proven to deliver, it is important to sustain this improvement. And for this, we need to implement processes, automation, and measurements, right? So these are the three. First, we need to move away from localized thinking to a holistic thought thinking mindset. Second is, how are we able to bring the change across the organization so that we are able to have the change in the fastest possible time, also get the fastest feedback loop to have us aligned to achieving the results what we envisage before taking on the initiative, with the buy-in across the value stream. And third, once we've got this silver bullet of something working for the organization, how do we ensure that it is sustained, right? So these are the
Correct.
three key points that I'd like to leave on the table for the listeners to having their pursuit of operational excellence.
On that note, I think those 3 points should be the takeaways for the listeners for this episode. And just a thought process, work around it. Look at the system holistically, as Vijay mentioned. Change management, very important. Sustainability, continuous improvement always matters. So, with this said, operational excellence, you have the best practices, you have the tools, techniques, and this episode, this podcast will help you in starting. Do your baby steps in achieving and getting close to your operational excellence. Thank you, Vijay, for once again joining us uh, on NLG Talks. A fantastic year to come ahead. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you as well. And wishing you Goldrat Consulting all the best in the future.
Thank you so much, Jason. Wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year also.